Yeah, I'm Mike Sparks. I want to talk to you about a bill that I had proposed a few years ago. In the news, you'll often hear your county commission and local officials, maybe your town officials, complain about unfunded mandates. Well, as vice chairman of local government, I do my best to safeguard against unfunded mandates. I want to tell you about a bill I did run that was an unfunded mandate from the state of Tennessee, House Bill 1968. I'll argue it was one of the best bills ever presented before the General Assembly. The problem with that bill, though, is it froze the mayor, the property assessor, the sheriff, and others' pay increases, which were roughly $85,000 to $10,000. That was a mandate passed by the General Assembly before I got here, forcing the locals, meaning your county commission, to hand out those excessive pay raises. While I was on the county commission, I can remember the solid waste director, the former solid waste director, I will add, she come up with her budget, and I said, how much are you're putting in for your budget request for your employees at the solid waste, the convenience centers, if you ever go to recycle, drop off your trash. I said, how much are you allocating for that? She says, well, I'm not allocating anything. I said, you mean you don't want to help your employees get any kind of a pay raise? She says, no. So it surprised me. Well, after a little bit of argument on the county commission, on that committee, it was Public Works to be specific, we were able to get them a little 25-cent pay raise, which is a pittance. You know, those guys, if you ever go over there, you know, they use an outhouse for a bathroom, they have no health insurance, poor working conditions. And I realize you're not going to be able to pay those guys big money to do the job they're doing. I realize that. But also, as a public servant like I am, I ran for this position. I knew what the salary paid. I knew what a few benefits were when I took this position. So did everybody else that served at the local level. House Bill 1968 would have froze those pay raises. I had 5 lobbyists come against me on that bill. We talk about transparency in government. This is transparency. 5 lobbyists, specifically Jay West, come against that. I think his dad was the mayor of Nashville years ago. You know, Jay as a lobbyist is just doing his job. That's his job. You know, he's got to advocate for those people. Well, I don't think a guy making $120,000 needs a $10,000 pay raise, especially in a recession, especially when our county's $500 million in debt, especially when our country's in $19 trillion worth of debt. But sadly, when I see the issues going on, whether it's Rutherford County, Grundy County, Shelby County, Hamilton County, or Davidson County, it's sad that you don't see folks coming up here into this office advocating for some of the real issues that's going on, whether it's the incarceration rate, the fatherless rate, drug addiction, this heroin epidemic. I've never had an advocate come in this office and advocate for those issues. It's really sad when I see this. Now, some people may not like me talking about those things. I guess it tends to step on a few toes, if you will. But I always like what Christ said. Christ was, in my opinion, maybe a little bit of a rebel. You know, he faced his Pharisees. I often face my Pharisees. When I see people get those type of raises and turn a blind eye to those that need it, and it's not just the lowest man, sometimes it's the middle class. I can remember a friend of mine getting laid off from the town of Smyrna when their town manager received a $10,000 pay raise. And he was laid off I think it was a year later. Probably one of the best workers I had. I think these things are sad. You're not going to hear this in the Daily News Journal and the Murfreesboro Post. This isn't glamorous. It doesn't sell newspapers. But this is what goes on in your government. House Bill 1968, I will argue, would have saved more money, $2.6 million the first year. Over a 10-year period, Fiscal Review Department told me it was almost $30 million worth of savings. It's an unfunded state mandate, but nobody complained about that. The committee worked against me. I had several members that worked against me. But I tell you what, I will give somebody some credit, and that was Beth Harwell, the first female Speaker of the House. I can remember kind of being down and out, to be honest with you. I mean, I just had 5 lobbyists who'd been meeting with me, browbeating me not to run this bill. I mean, specifically asked me not to run the bill, telling me it's going to hurt me in my next election, which it didn't, still won. And it was very disappointing because I thought government was here to really help people, to really lift people up. You know, rising tide lifts up all boats. And I went to Speaker Harwell. I said, hey, I need some advice. And she said, I said, you know, I don't have any support on this bill. And I'm fixing to run it. I mean, I literally had 30 minutes. I was fixing to be in the committee. One of my first bills I'd ever ran. And I'll always remember what she told me. She said, Mike, if it makes you feel any better, you got truth on your side. If you think about it, truth's a powerful word. It's powerful. The truth is that was one of the best bills ever presented before the General Assembly. The truth is that was one of the biggest savings any freshman lawmaker had presented. The truth is it's an unfunded mandate. And the truth is there's too much silence today on the issues that matter. And remember the quote by Edmund Burke that often state, often wear it out. Edmund Burke was in Great Britain, probably one of the first people that advocated for the freedom of the American colonies. And he served in the British Parliament, kind of a rebellious leader, I guess you could say. And he said, all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. I often see good men doing nothing. I often see good men advocating for things that are wrong, that are self-serving. You know, when you're up here and people are lobbying, I understand that. And most of these people are good people. They're doing their job. They're advocating for their cause and they're paid to do that. Now, some people aren't paid and they're doing it because they care about education, they care about pro-life issues, alcoholism and things like that. And I respect that. I respect people that take off from the town of Smyrna, from my community, or Murfreesboro, Laverne, or Arrington, to drive all the way up here and fight traffic. They don't get paid to come up here. But when I see people who are given much should be required. So in this society we're seeing right now, I think tables need to be overturned. I think enough is enough should be a quote that we all remember. What's going on in this nation? What's going on when I present a bill and I have 5 lobbyists? You know the weird thing about this? You know who paid for those lobbyists? You paid for those lobbyists. The taxpayers paid for those lobbyists. And I'll tell you about another bill I run just this year that I was also blocked on. It was a bill freezing the pay raises of these school superintendents. Case in point, Shelby County. The guy's making $269,000. They gave him a $19,000 pay raise. At the same time now, they laid off 36,000, or they cut 36,000 students while laying off a few hundred teachers now. Remember, they lost 36,000 students, laid off a few hundred teachers, and they gave this guy a $19,000 pay raise. How does that make sense? The private sector would never do something so insane. Here's a guy who, in my opinion, wasn't doing a good job, but we're seeing this in other areas. We've seen it in Williamson County, where that guy played Davidson County and got them to bump up his salary. He went back and played them. Pretty smart, really. You got to give the guy credit. And but it's sad that what my bill would have done, though, was bring their pay down to what the governor makes, which is $184,000 a year, $184,000 a year. I don't think a school superintendent in Shelby County or Williamson County or Davidson County or Hamilton County or Knox County should be making more than the governor. The governor is representing over 6 million people. How does that make sense? But anyways, I want to tell you who blocked me on that was the School Board Association and TOS, Tennessee Organization of School Superintendents. Both those two groups blocked me. Their lobbyists blocked me. And you know who paid for those lobbyists, by the way? Who do you think it was? It was you, the taxpayer. This is this web that's been woven that the media will never tell you about. Sometimes I think they're all in cahoots together, okay? But think about this. It's an oxymoron in a sense. You're paying for these lobbyists. The county commission are funding these things. I bet the county commission don't even know these things. That's one reason I want to shoot this video. The taxpayers are paying for this. How do these guys get a $19,000 pay raise and they lay off a few hundred teachers? And I asked TEA, I said, TEA, what's your position? Oh, we're not getting involved in that. Remember what I said earlier? All that is necessary for the triumph of evil, if they're good men, to remain silent. Others are remaining silent. Nobody seems to really care anymore. Remember my 2 bills. The House Bill 1968, $2.6 million in savings. This bill about the school superintendents. I'm gonna run it again next year. But I need your help. I need you to get involved. I need you to call these other representatives on the Education Committee. I need you to call Chairman Harry Brooks. And Harry's a nice guy. I like Harry. But he wasn't too welcoming to that bill, okay? Those lobbyists, look into these things. If the newspaper reporters aren't gonna look into them, you start digging. Look into Tennessee School Board Association. Look into TOS. Ask who pays for these things. But I'm Mike Sparks. My office is always open. I don't take this position lightly. I'm here to serve you. And I think you would want me to do this job that I'm doing and ask the hard questions. I reflect on a guy that I worked with at Nissan. His name was Sergeant Asbury Hahn. Him and I done the same job at Nissan on the assembly line, the same exact job. I trained him. I ended up moving a day shift. He got called up to Iraq and gave his life in Iraq. He lost his life. When I'm up here taking on these issues, oftentimes by myself now, Freddie, had his people beside him. Sadly, many of those lost their life. And people are silent today. It really bothers me. And people wonder where this country is going. I'm telling you, the way this country is going, folks, it's unsustainable. It's unsustainable morally, and it's unsustainable financially. This country is in debt, $19 trillion. We've got a lot of problems out there, but we've got to focus on some solutions. Call me with your ideas. If I can ever be of help, call my office, 741-6829. I'm Mike Sparks. I'm here to serve you. Thank you.